You steal my spleen. Fine, I steal everything you own by Geminycain. Chapter 16. Girl with One Eye. Rake! The knife was no longer in the wall, thrown before his name was spoken in full. In front of his face, his gloved hand was lifted in reflex, the handle of the throwing knife held tightly in his grip. He caught it. It was fine. Damian's rage was gone. Why was his rage gone? In its place was a strangely non-characteristic shaken posture, with wide eyes and a slightly open mouth, which resonated with a small quiver in his jaw. Was he shocked that he had been able to catch the knife? Tim let go of the knife handle. There was no sound of metal clinking against the concrete floor. Oh, shock, as he had come to discover over the years, was one of the rare things capable of quieting the endless string of thoughts in Tim's head much more effectively than any drug or sleep ever could. In his mind, with a quiet that somehow felt louder than the noise, all he could hear and feel was his breath and loud heartbeat throbbing against the walls of his mind like a pressure building up inside. This is likely why it took him so long to realize. There was a knife in his eye. Tim was not sure what his expression looked like as he lifted his head to face Damian's widened eyes. Still, when the boy whose immaculate hubris usually made him blind to guilt or fear took a shaken breath, only for it to be caught in the caverns of his throat, Tim imagined the sight of himself to be quite horrifying. Damian stepped back. I didn't. Damian had thrown a knife. Tim took a step forward, and like a hare sensing a fox in the field, or a child running from the broken glass, afraid of the consequences, Damian scattered. There was the sound of clattering as the sword was picked up hurriedly, but he did not look away from where the boy had stood. When the footsteps dissipated, the sight became as quiet and as forceful as the silence in his head. There was a knife in his eye. There was a knife in his eye, and he stood alone. This really was not fair, was it? For how long had he stood still? He did not know. He needed to go home. He wanted his friends, and he needed medical help. Maybe you could fix this? Okay, that is a plan. There is Shut up, time to move. Tim ignored his shallow breathing and the strange sensation in his jaw, which was not quite a strain, but felt the same way his jaw felt after throwing up. Did he need to throw up? No, probably not. There was a knife. No, focus. The bike stood where he had left it, and Tim swung, swingeth. Tim was on his bike now. How had he had gotten on his motorcycle. Yay. Fight was over. Damian had thrown the knife anyway. Stop. It was becoming very clear to Tim that he should not drive. It was as if someone had their hand over his left eye, making him see darkness. Black specks danced freely in the side of his vision where he could see. The tarp was pulled somewhat over his bike, with the little amount of grace he could manage. He pulled out his phone and put it in front of his face as steadily as he could manage. Why is face recognition not working? Oh, right. How could I forget? There's a knife in my goddamn eye. This was fine. He could still enter his contacts. He just needed to type in his 21-digit password. It was in moments like this that Tim wished he were less paranoid. With his shaky hand, he tried to enter his password anyway. When he tried to press 1, he entered 8. When he tried to press 4, he accidentally pressed 5 as well. And when he tried to remove his mistakes, he somehow ended up turning off his phone, meaning he had to start over. Tim laughed bitterly to himself with clenched teeth. How funny was that? Tim allowed himself to laugh, a crooked thing, as the thoughts of how he should have known better by now berated him. Disappointment. Tim snarled in a voice that did not belong to him, a voice belonging to so many people from his childhood. He let the laugh live and then die naturally in his throat, rather than restrain it like he tended to. It made him feel better. Lines of blood were beginning to trail down his left cheek, slowly, in the same manner of tears, and with them came the reminder of what could happen if he did not move soon. Phone went back into his utility belt as he took a deep breath, as he tried to ignore the buzz of pain that was slowly beginning to make itself known and focus his mind. Every safe house in Gotham slowly appeared behind his closed eyelid, like dots on a map. One by one, they popped up until the closest to him came into view. The safe house was not his own, but the second nearest location was miles away. Tim split his mask and put the lower part over his face. "B!" Dick yelled as soon as he returned to the cave. Bruce looked away from the large screen of the back computer to his distressed son. "Dick, I am in the middle of I lost Damian." Bruce stilled. "What?" "We were out checking different locations like you asked us to, and there was this noise. Then Tim showed up and said some things to Damian that he shouldn't have before leaving." Dick took an exaggerated breath. "I look away for just a second, and then he was gone." "So not kidnapped," Bruce concluded from Dick's word jumble. That was always something. "I will check his location," he said, and turned back to the keyboard. The small dot indicating Damian's location was just a couple of minutes away, and it was moving toward the cave. Both Dick and Bruce sighed in relief. "Did you say Tim?" he asked. "Yeah, he was at one of the locations we went to." "Why?" "Not sure what he was doing there. Something with files? He was not too keen on staying, so I did not get to ask him." It was surprising to hear Tim had been in Gotham. Even though it was not his top priority at the moment, Bruce had still read the article about the new hero, Eminence Gray, and about the impact he was making amongst the citizens in San Francisco. They seemed to accept him easily. Bruce had assumed Tim would stick to his new surroundings a bit longer before returning to Gotham. The visit must have had an important reason. As soon as Damian entered the cave, Dick was by him and looked him over for injuries. "Richard, what are you—" "Shush, baby brother. You left without telling me. Are you hurt?" When Dick lifted Damian's head, he spotted traces of a bloody nose. "What happened, Damian?" If it had not been for the mask over the boy's face, Dick might have seen the small tremor that still resided in his eyes. Instead, he saw Damian cross his arms and look to the side. Dick's brow curled lightly as he opened his mouth almost reluctantly. "Was it Tim?" "Tch," Damian scoffed. "Drake was already gone. I ran into a street mugger. I got a lucky hit on me," he explained. Damian did not look him in the eyes. Dick assumed it was because the boy felt ashamed. That was what made sense in Dick's head, because even if his brother had been acting a bit out of place, the idea of Tim choosing to fight Damian felt silly. "I am so glad you are okay, but don't run off like that again. You damn well nearly gave me a heart attack." He hugged his brother close to him. Damian let him without any protest or complaint. His mind felt too caught up in repetition to bother. "Oh, you're right, Damian. You seem distant," Bruce questioned as Dick let Damian out of his octopus hold. "You were not hit on the head, were you?" Dick asked with newly returned concern. Damian straightened his back. "I did not sustain any injury to the head." Despite himself, he added, "or face area." He swallowed a lump in his throat. "My injuries are less than minor." Bruce looked his son over with a slight crease in his brow, then sighed. "You have a school day tomorrow. You should get some rest," he conceded. "Yes, father." With a bow, Damian left the cave. Using one of the retractable blades in his bow staff as a makeshift crowbar, he managed to pry a window open to the safe house. One foot was placed on the windowsill, then the next. His hands held tightly around the frame as he peeked inside the building. No one seems to... The horrible sound of an alarm went off, sending A sharp pain through Tim's head, making him lose his grip. He fell through the window, but managed to catch himself only a couple of inches before the handle of the knife would have made contact with the floor. He was positioned like that for a while, until small drops of crimson on the floor reminded him to move. Tim turned and let himself fall to his back. Heh. He could feel his heart in the tips of his fingers. When he spotted the alarm, it got a whack with his bow staff, effectively shutting it up. First aid kit. You need a first aid kit. The shock was beginning to recede. He knew because with its absence came the pain. So much pain. Every movement felt like something was hitting him on the side of the head with a hammer, making his brain scream in his skull. Not the worst pain you've been in. Keep moving. Tim found the kit in a cabinet above the kitchen stove, despite there being an actual medical area in the base. Of course he keeps it in the fucking kitchen. His vision blurred as a wave of pain and nausea washed over him. He used his staff to support himself and took a deep breath. Breathe, just breathe. You're going to be okay, just breathe. From behind him, he heard a gun click. You have got to be fucking kidding me.
Care to explain what you're doing on my property?
A static voice spoke behind his back. If Tim had the energy, he would have groaned loudly. We really have to stop meeting like this, he said, imagining how Jason's brow would furl at the comment. He listened to the sound of the Red Hood taking off his helmet, allowing Jason to take in the person before him properly. Tim took off his mask. The pause was short, or maybe long, he could not tell. Tim? Jason sounded almost skeptical, as if Tim was the last person on Earth who would show up in his home. What are you doing here? I thought. Tim turned his head slightly. Jason's eyes widened. I've not seen it yet, but I do like that reaction. Tim almost joked in a way. Fucking hell, kid. Jason swore as he took the kit out of Tim's hand, which resulted in ignored protests and guided Tim to sit down. I can take care of the wound myself, and make sure the kit is replaced, Tim assured, as he tried to ignore the pain that came with movement. Fuck no you ain't. Jason spoke with anger lazing his tone as he opened the kit on the side table. Was he angry at Tim? Had Tim said something to make him angry? It hurt to try and remember. What are you doing? He asked. Fuck does it look like I'm doing? Jason growled as he reached out to grab Tim's face. When Tim flinched at the movement, Jason stopped, then approached again with more careful movements. It does not look like the blade made it to your brain, he announced. What a relief. I have always been told my brain is my best feature. Tim paused a second, as if in thought. Oh, no, I got it wrong. I meant my ass. In the corner of his eye, he saw Jason pause and strain his jaw to stifle a laugh. How much blood have you lost? The response he got was an intelligible "yeah" sound. I'm gonna have to remove the knife. Gonna give you something for the pain first, though. No blood thinners, Tim mumbled. Yeah, I know. Believe it or not, this ain't the worst pile of shit I've had to work with. Tim did not have the brain power nor the care to be offended by being compared to as a pile of shit, but the information did make him feel a bit more at ease. When Jason came back, had he been gone? It was with a syringe in hand. He took a seat next to Tim again. When he aligned the needle, he looked up at him as if asking for permission to stick it in his arm. Tim gave a small nod and felt it as the syringe was emptied. Why are you doing this? Tim asked as he eyed the small red dot where the needle had entered. Jason put the syringe down on the table. What, helping? Did you expect me to just let you stitch yourself together and risk dying? He laughed. Yes. There was no emotion in Tim's answer as his eye locked onto Jason's. The smile fell from Jason's face. I'm not that big of a monster, kid. There was a pause as Tim looked at Jason until the other looked back. I know you are not. Then why would you think that? Tim's eye churned to the side and caught sight of seemingly nothing. Multiple occurrences make patterns. He spoke with a lowered voice. All I've seen for a long time are patterns. Is it weird that it would have hurt less if the kid had just called Jason a monster? What the hell had happened to him? He took a light breath and looked at Tim. I'm helping you because I want to. Not because I have a sinister ulterior motive, or because I expect to get your forgiveness. I am helping you because you need it, he said in his best attempt at offering assurance. Not something Jason felt he was good at, but he tried anyhow. Tim's icy blue eye went back to meet Jason's mixture of green and blue. He looked at him for a moment, before a small smile traced his lips. Good thing you did not expect forgiveness, because your apology was shit. The snort that escaped Jason at the sudden change was impossible to stop. Okay, I can see why you would think that. If I were to make a list of the worst apologies I've gotten in my life, yours would land on a solid 2 place, Tim stated. The expression on Jason's face was one of astonishment and disbelief. Timbers, I broke into where you lived and pointed a gun at you. How the hell am I not number 1 on that list? Tim shrugged. In the kindergarten class I went to, there was this girl, Cindy Ruthard, who went around and stole personal belongings from all the kids. She had stolen the key to my bike, and I had been looking for it for days, scared of what I was going to tell my parents. When she eventually got caught and was forced to return everything and apologize to everyone for her actions, she came to me, handed me the key, and can you guess what she said? What? She said, "Sorry for stealing your bike key. I thought I was stealing the key to your house." Jason's brow knitted together. That makes it worse. Yeah, I know. What did she want it for? I have no idea. Tim snorted with a little more giddiness than usual due to the drugs. Break into my house and watch me sleep, I guess. She did have a bit of a stalkerish vibe. I would know. Jason laughed. Well, shit. Looks like I got beaten by a kindergartner. The words made Tim smile. His laugh made small waves in his mind that were swimming in both pain and mirth. When he blinked, he swore he found himself back in the cave, surrounded by the glowing green color from the Lazarus pits. He blinked again, and it was gone. Did you start now? Don't want to wait a bit longer for the drugs to kick in? Jason questioned. No, Tim answered simply. What, got somewhere to be? Jason joked. Tim suddenly felt the heaviness of his phone in his belt as realization hit him. What time is it? A little past 1. Why? Jason had to physically push Tim down as he tried to get out of his seat. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Where are you going? There was a mission at 12. I was supposed to be back at 12. I thought I had hours. I need to call them. Tim's words were blurred as another wave of dizziness and pain ran through him. I think your friends would agree that you really shouldn't be leaving right now. Jason guided Tim back down. Do you have your phone on you? I can text them if you want. Tim gestured for a pocket in his belt, and Jason took the phone out. What do you want me to write? Not dead, thumbs up emoji. Jason raised a brow. Don't want to be a bit more informative? If I am, they will think someone has stolen my phone. Tim weakly shook his head. I do not think adding an eye and knife emoji is a particularly good way to break the news. I can't argue with that. Jason typed in the message and placed the phone on the table. He settled back beside Tim. Are you sure you want to start now? It is just pain, Tim assured. You're not going to be able to save my eye, are you? He asked. I'm sorry, Jason answered. Tim hummed. It is fine. I'll just have to replace it later. If you did not know this about me, I have an eye collection with 43 different eyes in it. He spoke truthfully. That is a concerning amount of eyes to have, Jason answered, not quite sure if Tim's words were due to delusion or not. Not even an even number. Did you put my eye in a jar? Tim asked suddenly, catching Jason off guard. What? Could you put my eye in a jar? I want to start a collection. Disbelief colored his face with a furrowed brow. Please. Tim pouted like a child who wanted a toy from the toy store. Jason shrugged his shoulders. Fuck it, why not? Say that getting the knife out hurt would be the understatement of the century. Tim had gotten a leather strap to bite down, which helped deal with the pain, but did not help much. Sometimes Tim compared the pain to other painful things he had been through, as if saying to himself, look at this memory. This was much worse. You can deal with this. When he felt the knife being pulled out, he thought of the surgeons digging around his insides with green light shining in the darkness around them. When the drugs and pain made him nauseous, he thought of the electricity through his body, of venom going through his body. And when the pain became more than something he could compare it to, he could find solace in the thought that the next time something like this happened to him, he would have a new experience to compare. Bulky arms lifted him from the soft chair he was in. There was a feeling of surgical tape on his face, likely keeping a cotton pad over his now empty eye socket. It was strangely comforting, like a child being comforted when they got a plaster over their scraped knee. The couch he was placed on was soft. Tim, 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 can you hear me? Tim opened his eye halfway, not having noticed closing it to begin with. There is one last thing I need to ask you, Jason spoke carefully. Tim hummed. Who did this? The way Jason spoke was too lowly for it to be anything other than threatening. Tim's eye went to look at Jason. You knowing would not change anything. His voice was hoarse and barely audible. There could be seen a tint of green in Jason's eyes. Who? No one you could harm, Tim said as his eyes left Jason. There was a small smile on his face, was bitter with the statement. The answer seemed to make Jason displeased. I think you'll find I'm very good at harming people. Tell me, please. Tim looked back up at Jason, shallow ice meeting acid green. Damian. He spoke in a whisper. Jason's eyes widened. And I do not want you to do anything about it. I do not want you to tell anyone. First, he seemed shocked, then frustrated. Why the fuck not? The little brat should not get away with shit like this. His eyes scanned over Tim's face as he looked down and turned quiet. A stark realization hit him then. This is not the first time, is it? Tim's lack of an answer was answer enough. How many fucking times has he done shit like this? 23, if you do not count this one. Tim did not look at Jason as he answered. Why haven't you said anything? A pained laugh bubbled up from Tim's throat. Not said anything? You do not know of this, but once Jason stuffed a grenade inside the mouth of a decapitated head and threw it at me. I threw it before it exploded, and I did not die as intended. Instead, I got covered in brain mass and had a bunch of grenade splinters embedded in my leg. Usually, I would hide incidents like that, but the brain mass made it a bit difficult. Damian got away with a light scolding, and I was told I should not have antagonized him the way I did, and that he was just a kid. I was told to do better. I was told I should have been more responsible. The next patrol, my leg gave me trouble, and I was reprimanded for not being able to deal with the consequences of my own actions. Tim's laugh sounded wounded. I have found silence to be less painful. I have already had a knife in my eye. I do not wish to be berated for it as well. Fucking Christ, Timbers. Jason's hand moved through his hair. Tim looked back at him. I want you to pretend your patrol went normally. There was no alarm in your safe house. You never ran into me. Jason was about to protest, but Tim interrupted. I know it is not good. I know I should talk to someone, and that is why I am in therapy. Right now, though, I just want to push this under the rug and get some rest. He pleaded. Jason's look was calculated as he took in the factors Tim was placing before him. He made a sigh that sounded closer to a groan. I had a pretty boring patrol tonight, he conceded. Tim smiled lightly. Now get some fucking sleep.